Hey gang, Massad Ayoob here for the Wilson Combat Channel. Welcome, or hopefully welcome back. Hope if you haven't already that you will subscribe to the channel, and we invite you to hit the notification button that'll let you know when new content drops. As you might have guessed from the prop here, this beautiful Wilson AR-15, we're going to talk about AR-15s and the Second Amendment again. Yes, we've talked about it in the past. We will have to again in the future because it's an ongoing fight for our rights to protect ourselves and our families. We're also discussing it because you all asked for it. We listen to you guys and gals' comments, and we respond accordingly with content. The argument continues to rage, is it a weapon of war, or is it a modern sporting rifle? Well, the answer is, might be different than some would think. There are some on our side of this fight that say we shouldn't call it the modern sporting rifle. We should call it weapon, because it sounds somehow disingenuous. I don't believe modern sporting rifle is disingenuous. If you get out there and compete in the sport of rifle shooting, which let's go back in a time before there was baseball in early America, in the time of the colonies, the American sport was shooting, generally done with rifles. The AR-15 platform dominates conventional bullseye rifle, as conducted at Camp Perry and elsewhere. It absolutely dominates practical shooting events, such as United States Practical Shooting Association matches, 3-gun matches, IDPA, pistol caliber carbine, and the like. So I think modern sporting rifle is actually an appropriate term. The other side says weapon of war and assault rifle. On that, we've got a quibble. First, if you actually read the Second Amendment, weapons of war are exactly what it is designed to protect and to preserve the right to own for American citizens. But the fact is, we come back to the definition of assault rifle. The people who define terms are the people who create the products and who use the products. In military ordnance, where this design sprang from, the assault rifle since the end of World War II has been defined as a gun with fully automatic capability, essentially a machine gun. This AR-15 is semi-automatic. Now, the fully automatic variant that looks like it, the M4, the M16, essentially have two functions once the shooting starts. Bang, 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 or rat-tat-tat-tat, full auto or semi-auto fire. This has only one, semi-auto fire. Bang, bang, one shot per press of the trigger, which means it has half of the shooting functions of the machine gun that the other side tries to conflate it with. Now, some people say that's too much of a semantic argument, and it's, oh, I hate to hesitate to use the word, but it's chicken shit. You know what? I don't think it's chicken shit, and I'll tell you why. In the world of debates, particularly polarized debates such as this one, there's something that many experts call the 10-80-10 rule. There are going to be perhaps 10% of the public and the voters on one side of the argument firmly. They're invested in it and they're never going to change. And on the other end of the debate, another 10% who are exactly the same, but their feelings are opposite. But in the middle is that decisive voting bloc of 80% of people who are still open-minded on the issue. They may be leaning in one direction or another, but their minds remain open. And the history of this has been the opposing side, the prohibitionist side, uses emotion. Our side uses logic. One element of logic is when the other side literally does not know the proper words for what they're talking about. They've just told that 80% in the middle that they literally don't know what they're talking about. And that's why I believe the modern sporting rifle term is one that should be kept because it's absolutely true. And any review of sport shooting in America today will show it. Weapon of war, it resembles one. It resembles the M16 externally, but it has literally only half its function. It can only shoot one way, not two. Not the scary way of the rat-tat-tat-tat. The other side is basically lying about it. There is no armed service on the planet that I'm aware of that issues a semi-automatic AR-15 rifle as its main infantry weapon. The many who use the AR-type platform are using the full-auto, select-fire, true assault rifles, the M16 and the M4. And that, brothers and sisters, is plain English. If they won't listen to logic, perhaps they'll listen to plain English. They're still, years after the Supreme Court of the United States determined the Second Amendment speaks to individual rights, they're still saying militia, National Guard, military reserve. Those are separate things entirely. If you think about it, the people who wrote the Bill of Rights had fought, for the most part, in the Revolutionary War, having won that hard-won victory. Do you seriously think they meant to empower a military force instead of the individuals? That entire document, the Bill of Rights, speaks to individual rights. It's one of the most carefully crafted documents in the history of the human experience. Are we to believe that the men who so carefully put that together decided, oh yeah, and we'll throw in a states' rights issue too, and let's make that second in importance? Logic says otherwise. I'd like to read something to you. I'd like to recommend a book to you. The Practical Guide to the United States Constitution by Tom McHale. If you're a gun person, that name rings a bell. It's because Tom is editor at American Handgunner magazine. He's written a couple of thousand articles on firearms. But he is also Director of Public Policy and Digital Media for the American Constitutional Rights Union and their Action Fund. In this excellent book that I recommend to all of you, literally a well-written reader's guide to the underlying principles of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. He has this to say, I quote, "Most of the arguments stem from the misunderstanding of two words in this clause, militia and regulated. Back in the day, the term militia referred to the collection of citizens and in no way, shape, or form was descriptive of a government-controlled armed force. In fact, standing armies were not to be trusted. The framers of the Constitution had just fought and died getting out from under the thumb of the world's most powerful standing army. They had no desire to make that mistake again. As for well-regulated, you might think of that in terms of properly functioning like a finely tuned watch. The word regulated had nothing to do with government control or oversight. Remember, the thinking of the day was precisely the opposite. The government should have little, if any, control over much of anything related to the individual. Who do you think provided the cannons used by the colonial army? That's right, they were privately owned." I wonder if that's been called to President Biden's attention, but I digress. The people who say you have no right to own a gun and that the Constitution of the United States says otherwise are telling you they think they're smarter than the Supreme Court of the United States. Going back to the decision of McHale versus District of Columbia and McDonald versus City of Chicago, the Supreme Court of the United States has established the Second Amendment speaks to individual human rights. Let me give you another quote. Back in the 1970s, I got to meet attorney David Hardy. He has, over the years, been one of our all-time great Second Amendment warriors. He wrote, he's quoting here from the court's decision in McDonald. That would have been 2010. "Our decision in Heller points unmistakably to the answer. Self-defense is a basic right recognized by many legal systems from ancient times to the present day. And in Heller, we held that individual self-defense is, quote, the central component, quote, of the Second Amendment right." And you can go back further than that. I stand here talking to you about gun owners' civil rights for not the first time. And I want to say, once more into the breach, dear friends. But if I'm going to quote that Englishman, King Henry V, let me quote another one. Lord William Blackstone. He was the author of what's called today the authoritative text, Commentaries on the Common Law. It is required reading in virtually every law school in America. Now this man, the leading authority in history on common law, said that the highest of all human rights is the right to self-defense. Behold, the embodiment of the right to self-defense. I said gun rights a minute ago. I'm going to tell you something. I actually don't believe in gun rights. Guns are objects. Objects don't have rights. Our fight, your fight to be able to protect yourselves and your loved ones and others who rely on you, is a fight for civil rights, the civil rights of gun owners. And it is absolutely a fight for human rights. Bear that in mind. Feel free to use every one of those arguments when the other side comes and says the Second Amendment is about the National Guard. There's more to discuss. We'll be here for more. We'll be here down the road with more, because this particular fight is not going to end, certainly not in our lifetimes. We'll see you down the road on the Wilson Combat Channel.